Long ago, in the golden age of ancient India, there lived a man whose words became more precious than jewels, more powerful than kings, and more beautiful than music. His name was Kalidasa. Even today, after many centuries, people remember him as one of the greatest poets and writers India has ever produced. Some people even call him the Shakespeare of India because of the beauty, emotion, and depth in his writing. But what makes his life even more interesting is that his journey was not just about talent. It was a journey from darkness to wisdom, from ignorance to greatness, and from an ordinary life to immortality through words. The truth is, not everything about Kalidasa's life is known with complete certainty. Ancient India did not always record the personal lives of poets and writers in the way we do today. Because of that, many details about his birth, childhood, and early life are hidden behind time, tradition, and legend. Historians believe he lived around the 4th to 5th century CE, most likely during the Gupta period, which is often called the Golden Age of Indian culture and learning. This was a time when art, literature, science, and philosophy were flourishing across India. It was the perfect age for a genius like Kalidasa to arise. Many stories say that Kalidasa was not born as a learned man. In fact, one of the most popular legends tells us that he was once very simple, uneducated, and innocent. Some versions even say he was a poor shepherd or a woodcutter who knew very little about books or knowledge. He was physically handsome and had a calm nature, but he lacked education. He was not a scholar, not a priest, not a court poet at that time. He was just a simple man living a simple life. Now, whether this story is fully historical or partly legendary, we cannot say for sure. But it has survived for centuries because it carries a powerful lesson. And that lesson is this: a person's beginning does not decide his ending. According to the famous legend, there was once a princess or a highly educated woman named Vidyoptama. She was brilliant, proud, and unmatched in knowledge. She challenged scholars and thinkers, and she wished to marry only a man who could defeat her in wisdom and debate. Many learned men came to challenge her, but she defeated them all. Over time, this made her proud, and some scholars who were insulted by her intelligence wanted revenge. One day, these defeated scholars found the simple and innocent Kalidasa. They saw that he was handsome but uneducated. They thought of a cruel trick. They dressed him like a learned man and presented him before Vidyottama as a great silent scholar. Since Kalidasa did not know how to debate, the scholars told him to remain silent and communicate only through signs. Then began a strange and famous silent debate. Vidyottama raised one finger, perhaps meaning that truth is one or knowledge is one. Kalidasa, not understanding philosophy at all, thought she was threatening to poke one of his eyes. So he angrily raised two fingers, meaning, if you do that, I'll poke both your eyes. But the scholars cleverly explained his gesture as something profound, saying he meant, yes, truth is one, but it appears in two forms. Vidyottama was amazed by what she thought was his silent wisdom. And so, believing him to be a great scholar, she married Kalidasa. But truth cannot remain hidden forever. After marriage, Vidyottama soon discovered that Kalidasa was not a scholar at all. He did not know scriptures, grammar, poetry, philosophy, or even basic formal learning. The woman who expected a great intellectual partner was shocked and humiliated. She realized she had been tricked. Different versions of the story tell this moment differently, but all agree on one thing. Kalidasa felt deep shame. This was not just embarrassment, it was a turning point. It was the moment that broke the old Kalidasa and gave birth to a new one. Sometimes in life, one insult can destroy a person, but sometimes one insult can awaken greatness. Kalidasa decided that he would no longer live in ignorance. He would transform himself. He would seek knowledge with full devotion. And from this pain began one of the greatest transformations in Indian literary history. The legend says that Kalidasa went to pray to goddess Kali, the divine mother, with complete surrender. He meditated, wept, prayed, and asked not for wealth, not for power, but for wisdom. He wanted light in his mind. He wanted words in his heart. He wanted understanding. His very name, Kalidasa, means servant of Kali. Some scholars also believe his name reflects deep devotion and suggests that he may have followed the broader Hindu spiritual tradition of his time. His works also show deep respect for Lord Shiva, nature, dharma, and the sacred rhythm of life. According to the popular legend, goddess Kali blessed him, and after that blessing, Kalidasa was no longer an ordinary man. His mind opened like the sunrise. Words began to flow from him like a river. His thoughts became refined, graceful, and powerful. The same man who once knew almost nothing became one of the greatest literary minds in Indian civilization. Now, whether this happened in a miraculous moment or through years of hard study and discipline, the deeper truth remains beautiful. Greatness is often born from pain, humility, and hunger for knowledge. After this transformation, Kalidasa began to study deeply. He immersed himself in Sanskrit language, philosophy, mythology, human emotions, and the beauty of nature. He did not just become educated, he became extraordinary. Soon, his talent became impossible to ignore. His poetry was not dry or difficult in the way some old texts can be. His words were alive. They had fragrance. They had music. They had tenderness. He could describe a cloud as if it had feelings. He could describe a flower as if it had memory. He could describe love, separation, rain, forests, kings, gods, mountains, and seasons in such a way that the reader did not just understand them, the reader felt them. This is why Kalidasa became so beloved. He was not just a writer for scholars, he was a poet of the human heart. Many traditions connect Kalidasa with the royal court of King Vikramaditya, especially in Ujjain. Some stories say he was one of the famous Navratnas, or 9 gems in the king's court. Historians say this tradition is famous but not fully certain, because several kings used the title Vikramaditya and the timeline is debated. But what is clear is that Kalidasa was closely associated in tradition with royal and cultured circles, and his writing reflects the elegance of a refined courtly world. Imagine the scene. In a royal court lit by lamps, with scholars, musicians, priests and nobles gathered in silence, Kalidasa rises to recite. His voice is calm, his language is pure, his verses move like music, and everyone listening feels that they are hearing something beyond ordinary speech, something sacred, something immortal. One of the reasons Kalidasa became so great is because he mastered not just one kind of writing, but many. He wrote plays, epic poems, and lyrical poetry. And in all of them, he left a mark so deep that his works are still studied and admired today. Scholars generally identify 6 major works as his most authentic creations. Among all his works, perhaps the most famous is Abhigyan Shakuntalam, also known as the Recognition of Shakuntala. This masterpiece is considered by many to be one of the greatest works in all of Indian literature. It is not just a play, it is an emotional world filled with love, longing, innocence, pain, destiny, and reunion. The story is based on the love between Shakuntala and King Dushyant. Shakuntala is a beautiful and gentle young woman raised in a forest hermitage. Dushyant meets her there and they fall in love. Their love feels pure and natural, surrounded by trees, rivers, birds, and the calm beauty of nature. But then fate enters the story. Through a curse and a lost token, Dushyant forgets Shakuntala. She suffers deeply. Love turns into pain, separation turns into silence, and the audience feels the weight of longing and misunderstanding. Later, truth returns, memory awakens, and the story moves towards reunion. What made this play so powerful was not only the plot, but the emotional sensitivity. Kalidasa turned a traditional tale into something deeply human.
His Shakuntala is delicate, graceful, and emotionally real. His descriptions of nature are so beautiful that the forest itself feels like a living character. Even today, readers feel the sweetness and sadness in this story. And this play did not remain famous only in India. It traveled across the world. It was translated into many languages and deeply impressed readers and scholars outside India too. Through Shakuntala, Kalidasa carried Indian literature beyond borders and into global admiration. Another great work of Kalidasa is Meghaduta, which means cloud messenger. This is one of the most emotional and poetic works ever written in Sanskrit. The idea itself is magical. The story is about a yaksha, a heavenly being who has been separated from his beloved and exiled far away. He is lonely, heartbroken, and filled with longing. One day, he sees a cloud in the sky at the beginning of the monsoon. Then he does something unforgettable. He asks the cloud to carry a message of love to his distant wife. Just imagine that image. A lonely man, standing on a mountain, looking at a monsoon cloud and speaking to it as if it were a friend. That is Kalidasa's genius. He makes nature emotional. He makes the sky personal.
As the cloud travels, Kalidasa describes mountains, rivers, cities, temples, forests, and landscapes with breathtaking beauty. But beneath all those descriptions is one feeling: longing. The pain of separation, the hope of reunion, the silent faith that love can travel any distance. This is why Meghaduta remains timeless. Anyone who has missed someone, loved someone, or waited for someone can feel its heart. Then we come to Raghuvangsha, meaning dynasty of Raghu. This is a grand epic poem in which Kalidasa tells the story of the royal line of Lord Rama. It is majestic, noble, and full of royal dignity. Through this work, Kalidasa shows not only his poetic skill, but also his understanding of kingship, dharma, duty, and the responsibilities of rulers. This was not just storytelling, it was cultural memory. It connected the audience to ideals of leadership, sacrifice, and moral order. Through Raghuvamsha, Kalidasa did what great poets always do. He preserved values in beautiful language. Another remarkable work is Kumar Sambhava, which means the birth of Kumara or the birth of the war god Kartikeya. This poem tells the story of Lord Shiva and goddess Parvati, their union and the birth of their son, who would later defeat evil. This poem is full of divine romance, spiritual power, and majestic imagery. Kalidasa describes mountains, meditation, desire, penance, and cosmic purpose with astonishing grace. He does not write mythology as dry religious content. He writes it like living beauty. You can almost see the Himalayas, feel the silence of Shiva's meditation, and sense the devotion of Parvati. He also wrote Vikramorvashi, a drama about the love between a mortal king and a divine woman named Urvashi. This play explores love that crosses the boundary between heaven and earth. It is emotional, dramatic, and lyrical. Kalidasa once again shows how love can be both beautiful and painful. Then there is Malavikagnimitra, another play traditionally accepted as one of his genuine works. This one is lighter in mood compared to some of his other writings. It deals with romance, palace life, courtly intrigue, and hidden identity. Even here, Kalidasa's talent shines because he could handle not only deep emotional themes but also playful and elegant storytelling. Some traditions also connect him to Ritu Samhara, a beautiful poetic celebration of the 6 Indian seasons, though scholars have debated whether it was definitely his. Still, it reflects the kind of seasonal and natural sensitivity that people strongly associate with Kalidasa. One thing that makes Kalidasa truly special is the way he used nature. For Kalidasa, nature was not just background decoration. Nature was alive. The monsoon was emotional, flowers had moods, rivers carried memory, mountains stood like silent sages, trees felt like companions, birds, clouds, rain, dawn, moonlight, and seasons all became part of human feeling.
This is why his poetry still feels fresh, because nature never becomes old. Even today, when someone watches rain falling outside the window and thinks of someone they miss, that feeling is Kalidas-like. When someone sees the first cloud of monsoon and feels romance in the air, that is Kalidasa's world. When someone sees beauty in silence, in trees, in moonlight, in the changing season, that is also Kalidasa's world. Another powerful thing about his writing is that he understood human heart. He understood love, but not only happy love. He understood waiting, misunderstanding, separation, regret, hope and reunion. He understood dignity, longing and emotional pain. His characters are not flat, they feel deeply. That is why even modern readers can connect with them. He also had a deep sense of dharma, or righteous living. In his works, duty and emotion often walk together. Kings are expected to be noble, lovers are expected to be sincere, devotion is expected to be pure, even beauty is tied to moral grace. In this way, Kalidasa was not only entertaining people, he was shaping cultural imagination. He wrote in Sanskrit, which was the great literary and scholarly language of his time. But he did not use language only to show off knowledge. He used it to create beauty. His mastery of metaphor, rhythm and expression was so high that later generations treated him almost like a perfect model of classical poetry. For many students of Sanskrit literature, Kalidasa became the standard of elegance. This is why his influence spread far beyond his own lifetime. Many poets after him tried to imitate his style. Dramatists learned from his emotional structure. Scholars praised his command over language. Even centuries later, his name remained a symbol of literary excellence. In India, when people wanted to describe a truly great poet, they often compared him to Kalidasa. His fame also reached outside India. European scholars, translators and literary thinkers were deeply impressed when his works became available in translation. They discovered in him not only a poet of India, but a poet of universal feeling. Now, let us think about the deeper meaning of Kalidasa's life. Why does his story still matter today? Because Kalidasa's life teaches us something very powerful. Knowledge can transform destiny. He reminds us that being uneducated at one stage of life does not mean a person is finished. It does not mean he is worthless. It does not mean he cannot rise. A person can begin in darkness and still become a light for the world. He also teaches us the value of humility. If the legends are true, then pride humbled him before wisdom lifted him. And this is important. Many people want success, but not everyone wants discipline. Many want respect, but not everyone wants growth. Kalidasa's journey shows that real greatness comes when ego breaks and learning begins. He also teaches us to observe life deeply. Today many people move fast. They scroll fast, speak fast, think fast and forget fast. Kalidasa belonged to a world of attention. He looked at clouds, he listened to silence, he felt seasons, he noticed emotion, he paid attention to beauty. That is why his words still breathe. And maybe that is one reason we still need Kalidasa today. We live in a world full of noise. Kalidasa reminds us of depth. We live in a world full of speed. Kalidasa reminds us of stillness. We live in a world full of information. Kalidasa reminds us of wisdom. Even now, in schools, universities, theatres and literary circles, his works continue to be read, translated, performed and admired. His stories are not dead texts, they are living treasures. When someone reads Shakuntala and feels heartbreak, when someone reads Meghduta and feels the ache of distance, when someone reads Kumar Sambhava and feels the beauty of devotion, when someone reads Raghuvamsha and feels the dignity of duty, Kalidasa lives again. That is the power of a true poet. The body dies, but the voice remains. Some people become famous in their own lifetime and are forgotten later. Kalidasa became something greater than famous. He became timeless. He was not a warrior, but he conquered hearts. He was not a king, but he ruled language. He was not a god, but he created beauty that still feels divine. And perhaps that is why his story continues to inspire millions, because it is not only the story of a poet, it is the story of human possibility. A man once considered simple and foolish became a jewel of civilization. A man once mocked became immortal. A man once silent gave the world unforgettable words. That is why, even after centuries, when the clouds gather, when the rain begins, when the forest becomes green, when love feels both sweet and painful, when beauty touches the heart without speaking, somewhere in that moment, the spirit of Kalidasa is still alive. If you ever feel late in life, if you ever feel less educated, if you ever feel that others are ahead of you, remember Kalidasa. Because your present does not have to be your final story. Sometimes the greatest chapters begin after humiliation. Sometimes wisdom begins after heartbreak. Sometimes the person the world misunderstands today becomes the one the world remembers forever. That was the life story of Kalidasa, a poet of love, nature, devotion, beauty, and eternal words. In the grand story of India, his name will always shine like a lamp that never goes out.